welcome back to another video. Last week, I discussed the difference between attachment and love. And today I want to talk about overthinking. And you will notice throughout whatever I'm going to share with you, how this is all very much connected to each other and how everything is always coming back to how much you trust yourself. Because when it comes to overthinking, your mind is actually creating safety for you when self-trust is low. What I didn't mention last week as well is that attachment is very much connected to your self-worth. So when your self-worth is low, then you automatically doubt your perception, you doubt your needs, and you also doubt your decisions. So you can think of it as a cycle that keeps looping. So you have on one end, you have attachment, and attachment automatically leads to uncertainty. Then you have uncertainty, and your uncertainty leads to self-doubt. And when you are doubting yourself, it leads to overthinking. And again, when you overthink, it leads to emotional paralysis. So that keeps you stuck, that keeps you in your patterns. And this is why I want to create these videos, so you start to become aware of your own patterns and you start to become more conscious, so you can make better decisions for yourself and you can act in a more conscious way, and something that perhaps wakes you up. Like, it took me years, if not decades, to come to this point where I am today. And all I want is for people to become more aware, to wake up and to choose better for themselves. I am here for the truth. And the truth is not easy to accept. It wasn't easy to accept for me, for my path. It was very hard. And I have to admit, it's not an easy path, but it's something that you will always find yourself coming back to, if you want to or not. You can live in a world that is pretentious, that seems to be nice, but deep down, it's always something where you will find yourself coming back to the truth, if you want it or not. So as I said earlier, today I'm talking about overthinking, and I will share with you 2 examples where this is happening, especially for women. And what I want you to know and keep in the back of your mind is that overthinking happens because your mind is trying to keep you safe. And overthinking is not because you feel confused. It feels like that in the moment, but it's actually, again, because you don't trust yourself. I'm going to share with you the first example that has happened to me in the past as well. And this is early dating. So you find yourself overthinking when you don't really know where you stand, and you are waiting for his messages. You are waiting for him to ask you out. You are waiting to be chosen. And this needs to stop. This really needs to stop, because this is all tied back to your self-worth and to trusting yourself. Like, where have we become women that are waiting to be chosen? Why is it not equal, where you start to actually evaluate if this man is matching your values, is matching your beliefs, is matching your standard? And of course, you can never find the perfect man that's matching everything. But you do have to be in a position where you also evaluate if he's matching you, and not just hopefully he chooses me. Hopefully he will ask me out. No, you decide as well. You have to remember your self-worth. You have to stand up for yourself and know who you are and know what you want. And then stick with it, because let me tell you, if you start already lowering your standards and you hope he will text you just to have that immediate feeling of being good enough to be chosen, like no matter what status he has, no matter how good he looks, no matter like whatever it is on your end, but you have to qualify them as well and see if you want to be with them, not just hopefully he will take me. No, definitely no, because you know what, if you just want to be chosen, I'm telling you, later down the line, you will keep overthinking and wonder if he is actually the right one, because you haven't qualified early enough if he is a good match or not. So I want you to remember who you are. I want you to remember what you want and stand up for it. And it doesn't have to be just black and white. It doesn't have to be just like what you want. No, of course there are compromises. Of course there are things that are not going to be perfect, but you have to remember who you are, and you have to remember your self-worth, and stop waiting to be chosen. It's as simple as that. And the way you do that actually is to stop living in a fantasy world. As women, we have this trait in us where when we meet someone, we tend to live in a fantasy world. We see a lot of potential in someone, and then we start continuing this potential into the future that doesn't even exist, and he hasn't even invested in you. He hasn't even shown you that he wants to be with you, or this is how men really operate. And it's so simple, because they will show you in their behavior and in their actions, and that's all you have to observe. And until he doesn't really show you that he's investing into you, or that he wants to be with you, then until then you do nothing. And this is being also in your feminine energy. You let the man lead, and you read into his behavior, you read into his actions. These are the facts. And everything else is just fantasy. So if you follow this, you can stop overthinking. And it's very much just sticking to the facts and staying in reality instead of living in a fantasy world. And the second example that I want to talk about is when you are currently in a relationship, fresh, long term, whatever, and you keep overthinking. You kind of find yourself coming back to the question if this is right, if he's the right one, if this is all like the way it should be. And you are trying to solve the relationship in your mind by trying again, by trying to influence him. And yes, you should have communications with him. If something doesn't feel right, of course, have the conversation and see where it goes. But the thing is, if you don't, if you keep finding yourself in the same situation where you keep trying and then it improves, like let's say it improves for 2-3 weeks, because usually then the human being is going back to their old patterns, because you can't change someone else. Also, you can't control someone else. So if you keep trying to talk and talk and talk and nothing changes long term, then it's questionable, of course. And of course, you start overthinking. And I've thought about this, because when you are in a committed relationship, it can come to two phases of overthinking. And the one phase is where you don't really clearly communicate with your partner. So you start to create stories in your mind and give it a certain meaning. and then you start to overthink. So this is the one phase. Then there's also another phase where you probably reached a level in your relationship where you can't stand it anymore and you have to communicate. So you say clearly what you want, what you need, and you try to find a middle ground with your partner and compromise. And he agrees to that. And then it goes really well, maybe for 2 weeks, maybe 3, maybe even a month if you are lucky. And then it goes back to square one, right? So nothing changes long term, because at the end of the day, you cannot change someone else and you also cannot control someone else. So remember this, that you can only change and control anything that's inside you, but anything that's outside you, you cannot control or change long term. Only the person, look how difficult it is already to change yourself. So now imagine to try and change someone else. It's not possible. It's not possible. They have to have the clarity or the realization, the awareness within them in order to want to change. But you can't do that. Unfortunately, I wish it was like that. I would have done it long time ago if I could have. But it was not possible, and it is not possible. In that case, of course, you overthink as well again, because you repeatedly communicate the same thing over and over. But there comes a time where you face the truth and you trust yourself enough to do what you feel inside you. And I'm not here to tell you what you feel inside you. That's for you to figure out. And I think you do know what you feel inside you. I know it's not easy to accept the truth. And it's also not easy to execute it. But I have a whole different video on that when I speak about alignment and letting go. I know it. I've gone through it. So I know how difficult that is. But the other route is also difficult, to stay in something that isn't aligned with you. And all I'm going to say is that if nothing ever changes, then that gives you useful information. And this information will be good for you to decide then how you want to move forward. And as always, only you know that, because you have that inner knowing inside you, no one else. So, and the reason why you keep overthinking and you keep finding yourself in this loop, it's because you've abandoned yourself for so long and you don't really know anymore what it's like to trust yourself, what it's like to listen to your inner voice and let that guide you. Look, it's when you overthink, for example, let's go back to that second example. You are in a relationship, you have your partner, and you wonder if he's the right one or she, whoever again is watching. You are wondering and questioning if your partner is actually right for you. Don't you think that, and I'm not talking about a one case scenario, like I'm talking about over a longer period of time, you questioning and you doubting if your partner is the right one for you. Don't you think that alone having this question in your mind is something to really wonder about? That question alone carries already the answer. And I am conscious this is not something you would want to hear, because it's painful and it brings up fear inside you. And this fear makes you again uncertain. Going back to that loop that I talked earlier about. It's something I didn't want to face. That's why I overstayed, because I wasn't ready to let go. I wasn't ready to trust myself. And maybe you are in this scenario now. And I'm not here to promote to walk away. Like, I'm going to say this again, only you know what it's like for you, and only you will know what your inner voice is telling you. But the truth is that you will find yourself in this loop if you don't act on it. And it will come back, and life will teach you in different ways until you learn your lesson. So it's up to you, really, if you want to face the truth or if you want to keep repeating the same patterns. And yeah, I wish I could tell you something different. I really wish. I wish for myself I had a different experience in the past. But this is life. Life is teaching you to grow, to let go, and to choose better for yourself. What I want you to know is that when you trust yourself, you stop overthinking. You respond to life instead of analyzing everything. And I'm going to close with this. And I want you to know that, or be aware of it at least, that overthinking happens that when you don't trust yourself enough to act on what you know. And your mind is trying to protect you from the consequences of the truth. So you have always the mind and your body, and they work in a way together or even not. It depends, of course, on what situation you find yourself in. But the moment you have the awareness, you can start paying more attention to that. So see your mind as safety and protection. So it's always trying to protect you even from change, because the mind likes the familiar, and your body is more towards truth and alignment. And this is why I always like to say to quiet the mind and get into your body, so you can really feel into the truth and act on what you know. And your mind is not the problem at the end of the day. It's trying to protect you, which is a good thing, right? But it's protecting you from the very change you need in order to get into alignment. And I'm going to leave you with this. And as always, if any of this stood out to you, if you've experienced it, if you have something to share with me, feel free to send me a message either via email or via Instagram. I'm always happy to hear from you. And I hope you have a wonderful day. And I will see you next week.